My name is Rick Cook, also known as Harpman Hatter, and I've been doing the street music thing here in Spokane for a little over 3 years now. And I started doing it when I got into job problems and I wanted to go out on the streets and, instead of panhandling, play music and see what happens from there. How long have I been in Spokane? Well, I was born and raised in 1957 in Hilliard, and I was away from Spokane for like maybe 3-4 years out of my life, you know, and I've been here most of my life. One of the things that started me on the street music scene was like, it has a lot to do with my experience like in bars. See, I started playing in the bars like in 78 and 79. See, in Spokane, they had one of the biggest railroad yards in the United States. It was Great Northern, and they used to build trains there a long time ago. And right now they're building a freeway there, but it was like a railroad town. They had more bars there than any other place in town. Now they probably have about 3 bars there, but at one time they had about 15. So Hilliard ended up having a lot of alcoholics because of all those bars. You get kicked out of one bar, you get to go to another one over and over again. So it was pretty hard to get away from getting kicked out. I have 3 brothers and 2 sisters, and I have an ex-wife up here, and I have 4 children and 4 grandchildren. And I help my daughter has a grandson, you know, and I help babysit once in a while. My dad has passed on. He worked for the railroad. It was Great Northern Railroad, then Burlington Northern for about 38 years. He retired. And he built 2 log cabins, up one in Idaho and one in Montana. They're both standing still. My mom's a country western piano player, and she played music in the 60s, and all the people from the railroad would come over there, and travelers, like people off the box cars and stuff like, they'd come over there and listen to the music. And that's where I started getting my musical, I would say, theory. So when I started picking up the harmonica, I noticed that the music was in my head. When I got my first harmonica, I was 18. This person was playing harmonica, and I liked the way it sounded. You know, I never really been around somebody that played harmonica like that. And he told me, you know, a tradition that you don't sell harmonicas, you give them away, because they're a very personal instrument. They're full of spit and slobber and all that other stuff. So you give them away. And it took me about 2 or 3 months before I could actually play a song where I could actually play along with on the radio. Because there wasn't very many harmonica songs out there unless you listened to the blues, and you didn't get to listen to the blues. I mean, I wasn't doing very well when I was 18 or 19. I didn't have my own radio, so I got to listen to other people's radios, and I listened to those songs. Plus my mom's country and western playing. I got to listen to a lot of country western. Was in my head, you know, but I preferred the blues over the country and western. So it was really easy for me to pick up on that kind of music. Anyway, I got my name Harpman Hatter. I was going to make a MySpace page, and I was trying to come up with a name for MySpace instead of my own name. And I remember I was staying with my sister and her kids. They were below teenagers, you know. They kind of like had a problem with me sometimes because I'd see them do something wrong, you know, and I'd get on their case about it. So I just thought about calling myself Wicked Uncle. But then there was too many other people called Wicked Uncle, so I said, well, no, I ain't gonna use that name. And I was wearing a top hat that's shorter than this one, and I says, well, how about if I call myself, because I'm a Harpman and then Hatter, like the Mad Hatter. Of course, some people will call me the Mad Hatter, and then I make my little story about, no, I'm not the Mad Hatter, I'm his son. Mad Hatter is my dad, and Alice is my mom. That's what I'm saying. And so that's basically how I got the name Harpman Hatter, was just doing it on the MySpace, and it's a name that I made up, and it's working pretty good. It's an original name. Well, on the streets, I have what I call a moving audience. And what happens with a moving audience is that they're constantly moving, and you end up getting a fan base kind of like that out here, just as much as the ones that are playing in the clubs. You know, just as many people get to know you out here on the streets as they do in the clubs, and these are people that you will never see in a club. So this is something that I was able to promote this instrument, the harmonica, on the streets, so that people get to have an exposure of it, playing by itself, amplified, and get to hear different kinds of music that they would probably never hear on the radio. They had a lawsuit at the Spokane Transit over a First Amendment issue, and so you didn't have to have a license or a permit. So I started going there, and the security told me that I couldn't play my music there, so I went to Center for Justice, and this took like 6 months, and finally Center for Justice went and got it in with the Spokane Transit that any musician can go out there and play music without permits. Well, I decided I wanted to get a permit, so I got a permit, and then I found out about the permits that they were a vendor's license. And what happened there was, on the vendor's license, it says that if a business doesn't like you being there, they can ask you to move. So I had to go through all these businesses and ask if I could play in front of their business, and every one of them said no, except Macy's. Macy's was really open to letting people play out by their whole strip there, which is like a whole block. And as time went by, I noticed that the vendor's license, I wanted to play other places, and I didn't like it, and I started studying constitutional law and noticed that the permit scheme was unconstitutional. So I had a meeting with the city attorney and the police department and the city treasurer, and I told them I wasn't no longer going to get a permit because it was against the Constitution. And I started carrying me a little flyer from a lawsuit in Philadelphia which says the ability to play a musical instrument or sing in a public place and solicit funds are forms of expression protected by the First Amendment. I started carrying that with me, so whenever the police come by, I'd throw that one on me. Well, they harassed me with another friend of mine last year in June, and they told, well, you don't have a permit. So they did this in front of Center for Justice, which is a legal organization here, and they witnessed it. And from that time, I got involved with Gonzaga University, and we got this on the in front of City Council. And then November they passed a law where a musician did not have to have a license or permit. This has been going. This license and permit scheme was like over 30 years, so it's gone. And that's one of the things that I stand up for. And all the interviews I've read about, when a person comes to that awareness, is like the people that have stood up for the First Amendment. They even say it's like, if you're in position, you know, it's your responsibility to actually, you're standing up for other people. And that's what I do, I'm standing up for other people. It's one of the hardest things to get people convinced of is it's not about me. That's one of the hardest things to get them convinced of. Because if you're standing out there, that's what they see. They say, oh, this is all about you, but it's not about me. When you get a law changed, that's not easy to do. You kids want to say hello before you walk away? You want to say hello? Come over and say hello. On this microphone. Come here. You say hello. I'm going to turn it way up. Say hello, Spokane.
Hello, Spokane.
You want to say hello? Say hello, Spokane.
Not hello, Spokane.
You say hello then.
Hello.
All right. Nice job.
I can.